This event is sponsored by Miro. Miro is the online whiteboard platform where product teams can work together effectively. If you don't know where to start, it's packed with over 50 templates for product teams. Whether you need a Kanban, mind map, retrospective, product roadmap, or user story map, we've got you covered. Try it for free.
Before we talk about product leadership, I want to talk about leadership. I get this question a lot. Divya, what do you look for when hiring someone onto your team? And my answer used to be a list of product competencies like strategy, prioritization, communication, and so on. To be honest, I found my own answer to be mundane and not quite complete, because I knew in my conscience that I look for something more. Most people have those competencies, but what really differentiates them to qualify as a great addition to the team that I passionately lead? Shackleton Expedition is one of my favorite case studies from Harvard Business School. It exemplifies how to become a more resilient leader in turbulent times. The article delves into the legendary explorer Ernest Shackleton's expedition to South Pole. He took heroic actions amidst crisis when his ship was immobilized in the sea of ice. Imagine yourself in Shackleton's place. What would your top priority be as a leader? What should you do? Of course, you would do everything in your power to try to rescue your crew. But if there's no way out, what would you do? Shackleton kept his team engaged and focused on activities on the ship, which brought cohesion, togetherness, and protected the mental well-being of his crew while they awaited for the crisis to pass. Of all the traits in crisis, attitude is what mattered the most. It blows my mind as to how the story of exploration from over 100 years ago highlights the skills all leaders need to guide themselves through challenging times in the present. Personally, it taught me how to differentiate good PMs from the great ones when hiring, and what trait I should nurture the most in my teams when faced with challenges, and that is attitude. Hello, everybody. My name is Divya Dalapathi. I lead the product teams for Maps Experiences and Routing at Uber, helping moving people and things from A to B in a frictionless way. I'm really excited to share my insights on product leadership that I mustered over 16 years of my experience in tech. This talk is really beneficial to anyone in product, but more targeted towards those who are aspiring to grow into product leaders. And by that, I mean not just people management, but evolving your organization towards delivering superior products. And this is my tech career in a nutshell. I graduated from computer science, started off as an engineer, grew into a development leader, and then transitioned into product at Bing, and now here, a product lead at Uber. I really enjoy coaching and mentoring product folks, both in and outside of my work. Over the next few minutes, we will talk about what's unique about product leadership, what makes up a vision and strategy, how to create, and more importantly, measure customer value add. And we'll close off with my favorite topic on creating high-performing teams. I will share some of my recent favorite books and articles along the way. So what distinguishes product leadership from other types of leadership? As a product leader, you are an inspirational figure, not a manager. This applies to both individual and managerial roles. As an individual contributor, you do not have direct authority by definition. And even as a manager, using authority is not the way to succeed, as a product leader. So what makes an effective product leader? It really distills down to 3 traits. It's all about the customer, deeply understanding what and why you're building and what value add you're bringing to the customer is the leading trait. But it's not just about the customer. It's also about drawing a high confidence connection from the customer value to your business value. Next, it's the who you influence. A lot of times when hiring, I get the question, how many engineers will I be assigned? And I react with a smile. It's a fair question. A better question would have been, what does success look like for this role? Many times, great features are shipped where engineering is not the primary cost. You have data science, user research, design, operations, business development, marketing, and so on. These functions are as much of an asset to you as engineers are. In fact, many a time, the fewer resources you need, the stronger your ROI, as long as you have quantifiably high impact. So it's really important to influence your cross-functional resources by sharing how the problem ties to your vision and clearly articulating your priorities. So yes, it's all about influencing without authority. But how? I would say it's by building trust and creating a culture that is informed by data. You don't want to tell your team how to solve a problem, but you should ask the very pertinent questions that aid in connecting the dots between customer value and business. These questions will naturally drive your team to instrument your product in a way that the data can be transformed into actionable insights. Actionable insights often show patterns of customer behavior and business trends that help you stay ahead of the game. In order to exercise these traits, you need clear vision, strategy, and iteratively create customer value with high-performing teams. So let's surf through each of these. Vision and strategy revolve around your customers, stakeholders, but also your competition. Vision is blue sky thinking of where you want your org and your company to ultimately get to. It's simple, it's singular, understandable, and long-standing, often spanning multiple years. Strategy is the plan to action towards realizing your vision. For example, build versus buy is a common strategy type. Sometimes we need to blend strategies depending on both your long and short-term ROIs. You can have multiple strategies, and strategies change over a period of time. Many of you actually might be revisiting your strategies due to the new normal we are facing today. Depending on the size of your firm or the org, you as the product leader may need to set your vision or your strategy to achieve your vision. So let's look at some of the tools you can use to set your product vision or strategy. Understanding your customers is the key here. Who are your target customers? Oftentimes, your product will have multiple customers, the buyers, sellers, riders, drivers, and so on. Identify who you want to optimize for, who gets the byproduct, and who does not benefit. Spend ample time with your customers to understand their needs. If you're spending 70% of your time with your executing team, you probably aren't lending ears enough to your customers. So listen to the customers to understand their problems, but don't listen to them for solutions. Instead, divert their attention as to why this is a problem for them, and thereby a compelling opportunity for your team. The second thing is about stakeholders, knowing your stakeholders. If there's one thing I had to pick as the hardest part of product leadership, is managing stakeholder expectations while you're steering your product roadmap. Because it's more of an art than science, to be honest. So my advice to you is identify your stakeholders, your investors, the leaders of the larger org, business development, and customers, especially those power users or beta testers. But also identify the decision makers. You will not make everyone happy. So this is what a consensus-driven product could look like. Every team built their parts beautifully and is proud of what they have done in an incredible amount of time, but it's not usable by the customer. The one key stakeholder's happiness that you cannot compromise is the customer. So push for disagree and commit culture versus driving consensus via a happy medium solution, which may not add customer value. So, and we need to monitor competition. You want to keep an eye on the competition, but don't obsess over every move they make. And it's okay to copy some of their features if and only if it fits your vision. Do not rush into creating the same experiences without thinking what's next. As mentioned earlier, leverage your insights to stay 3 steps ahead and deliver the best value you can for your target customer. Tune your strategy as needed by being competition informed, but not driven. And finally, it's about connecting the product vision to the company's vision. Many of you are or have been in a role where you had to come up with the vision for your org or the team. My advice, don't rush into forming it. No need to block execution just because you haven't formed a team vision yet. In order to execute, all you need up front is a product value proposition. You will always have your company's vision to fall back to and execute for a short period of time, unless you're the founder, of course. One of the PMs who reported to me said, "But we first need to create a vision before we can execute." My response was, it's not like you can lock up the team for a day or two and come out with a grand vision in a day. Once you understand your customer, your stakeholders, and competition, and most importantly, practice executing towards your company's vision for a cycle or two, I promise you will be better equipped to tie your product visions to the company's vision. You would have learned about the elements that aid you in coming up with a vision that is a lot more sustainable. So always tie your product vision to company's vision and do not execute in silos. We all want to be contributing to a bigger part and what is core part of the company's vision. So prove that your vision, your team's vision is aligned with that of the company's. All right, so here are some good reads that I would highly recommend. Unlocking the Customer Value Chain talks about delinking strategy, which has proven to create phenomenal disruptions. And the Everything Store by Brad Stone is a biography of a company we all are aware of, and that disrupted customers' retail experiences in a terrific way. It speaks to continuously tuning your competitive strategies to scale to customers' needs. We talked about vision and strategy. Let's talk a bit about executing to create customer value. Customers disrupt the market, not technologies. The problems they face create massive opportunities. So that's why defining KPIs that truly represent customer experience is an absolute must-have. These KPIs are organizational goals. These can be both quantitative and qualitative, but please, please do not build a laundry list of metrics from your raw data. Those aren't KPIs and it will only cause death by metrics because your organization will not be able to use them to execute well. Understand the difference between KPIs and the supporting monitoring metrics. You'll need to establish how these product KPIs lead to LTV, lifetime value, of your customer. Once you identify your KPIs, segmenting your customers and associated KPIs is extremely powerful. Through this, you will learn what matters most, especially in the world of limited resources. It will allow you to identify where the largest headroom lies and therefore helps in prioritization. It will also help you build solutions tailored towards that segment, which means increase customer satisfaction. When measuring, be opportunity-driven, not metrics-driven. Be opportunity-driven, but metrics-informed. Remember to still obsess about the customer, not about the data. So be customer value and business opportunity-driven, because you'll never have perfect metrics. And that's why it's so important to listen to the customer's feedback as often as possible and as early as possible to have continuous refinement of your metrics and build the right product. Which leads us to our next topic, creating MVP. As we all know, creating MVP is the first step to delivering customer value add. There are a lot of misconceptions about how one should define an MVP. I've gotten it wrong a few times myself early on in my career, but learned over time and sometimes the hard way. But I always wondered how best to share my learnings with other PMs and product leaders. Then I came across this amazing article that puts it all together. The author Henrik beautifully describes the concept of earliest testable, usable, and lovable product with a figurative analogy of a car. Many teams think of MVP by answering, what is the cheapest and the quickest solution that I can build? The real question is, what is the earliest product that can be tested in order to generate feedback? In the above example, the team built a wheel of the car as an MVP, but the key is to understand that the real need is to help the customer get from point A to B. So the latter example shows an actual product that adds incremental value to the customer, just enough to get their feedback. So continuous improvement and iteration become a lot easier once you have customer feedback flowing into your cycle. And as Jeff Bezos wrote in his letter to his stakeholders, yesterday's wow becomes today's ordinary. So we need to be agile and always keep innovating. So these are a couple of great reads I would recommend related to measuring customer value and setting goals. Measure What Matters by John Doerr is a great read on how to set measurable goals for your org. And the Lean Product Playbook is a really good guide to iteratively testing and creating lovable products. Building high-performing teams is my favorite part of today's talk. Building high-performing teams entails optimizing for the team's collective performance and not the individual performance. This is a reason why I try to maximize individual strength and not tend to normalize everybody by bridging their gaps or solely focusing on addressing their weaknesses. Each individual contributor brings diverse strengths to the table. And as a product leader, it is our job to nurture and create an amalgamation to build a high-performing team. There are 3 principles to this in my view. First is communicate the priorities. Inspire your teams with vision. but also clarify the non-goals. It does magic and creates effective execution. Second is empowering with resources. So anticipate what resources your team would need and be proactive in equipping them with the right resources. And finally, structure the teams to create accountability and clear decision makers. And then just let them execute. When it comes to coaching individuals, product managers, and empowering them to maximizing their strengths, I have 3 practical tips for you. Let builders build. There is no one right way to build products. Let them do it their way, but guide them towards their vision. Asking questions to help them gut check their direction. A couple of times I ended up telling my PMs what to do, and it ended up making the solution very myopic versus unlocking new possibilities, let alone that wasn't fun for either of us. Also, a PM owns defining the customer problem, but not necessarily owning the solution. It's not the individual's idea that determines the success. It's ensuring that the most optimal solution bubbles up to the top and then gets implemented right. Diverse opinions also matter. They're really important to aid in weighing options. Let the individual know and show that you value their opinions and their styles of product managing. And finally, I have to say that having effective one-on-ones is actually awkward. Always leave room in your one-on-ones for giving each other honest feedback both ways. I highly recommend the framework from the book Radical Candor that shares how to succeed at this. My favorite part about this framework is caring personally but challenging directly. And the final element I would like to emphasize is the product culture. I'll leave you with a quote from famous VC John Doerr, where he puts leadership in a succinct way. We need teams of missionaries, not teams of mercenaries. Teams of missionaries are highly motivated by the vision. They have a deep understanding of customer needs and how it ties to business. Whereas teams of mercenaries, they do not have a sense of passion, empowerment, or accountability, and they're not able to understand why they do what they do. So share the vision, the elements of the business, and how the economics tie together, and provide all the context to motivate them to create. Inculcate a sense of safety. It's okay to fail, but fail fast. Create a culture of with a lot of experiments, learnings, acknowledge failures as much as successes. So there is no single recipe for success as a product leader. If there is one, it's most likely not the right one for you unless you created it. So create one, but you can start with the basic principles we talked about today. Thank you, Product School, for inviting me to speak to your amazing audience. Feel free to drop any comments or questions below or connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope you found this talk resourceful and are able to put these learnings to practice to create magic with your people and product. Thank you all, and goodbye.